all so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be having this panel in honor of Pride Month, in which, as you all know, we're going to be hearing about the successful transition into tech that each of our wonderful panelists made. So for those of you I don't know, my name is Ryan. I mean, I have this eternal name tag next to me, and I am the lead instructor for Codesmith's East Coast program. And we've got a very interesting discussion planned for this evening. So in just a moment, I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll spend some time chatting about their experiences. And at the very end tonight, we're going to save about 15 minutes for audience questions. So definitely don't be shy. Get ready to throw some questions in the chat when the time comes. Any of your burning questions for our panelists. But first, I'm joined this evening by three wonderful speakers. So I'd love for each of you to start off by introducing yourselves. So if you could share with all of us your name, where you're tuning in from tonight, your current company and how long you've been there, and what you do in your current role. It would be fantastic to start to get to know y'all.
Hi, everyone. So glad you're here. My name is Leigh. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. I work at SciTec, which is a military contractor software company in Boulder, Colorado. I moved here for this job, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. Everything is just perfect. Coworkers are perfect. I hope I didn't skip anything in the introduction.
No, that's absolutely wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for kicking us off tonight. And I have heard that Colorado is amazing. So very happy. What a place to relocate to. That sounds fantastic and can't wait to hear more about it. What about Miranda? We'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everyone. So my name is Miranda and my pronouns are she, they, and I work, I'm right now in Mexico, like at the very north of Mexico, really close to Texas, and it's so hot right now. But anyways, I'm a software engineer at the Trevor Project, and the Trevor Project is the leading suicide and prevention and crisis organization for LGBTQ people, young people. And yeah, I have been a software engineer in there for like the past 7 to 8 months, I believe.
Wow, that is super cool. Can't wait to talk more about that later on. And thank you so much for that introduction. And we'll turn it over to Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. She, her are my pronouns. I graduated from C-Tree now in January, and I work at a tiny company called MarineSitu that's doing underwater machine learning. We put cameras on fish, or we put cameras underwater, and we use machine learning to count fish. I've been there since March, and I love it, although it is challenging working at such a small company for my first job.
Wow, well, excited to chat more about that too, but that sounds absolutely amazing. Personally, my favorite hobby is scuba diving, so an underwater machine learning job sounds absolutely incredible. And excited to chat more about that. Putting cameras on fish is a pretty cool like tagline for a company, or a pretty cool mission for a company. So super excited to chat more with all of you. Thank you for those amazing introductions. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with all three of you tonight, and with everyone here joining us in the audience as well. So I'd love to just sort of start at the beginning. I'd love to hear more about where all of your journeys begin. So first question of the night, just to open up the conversation with y'all, I'd love to hear more about what you were doing before Codesmith and what made you decide to make this transition into software engineering and to pursue the Codesmith Immersive.
I could start again. I was a genetics researcher, so I split my time between coding in Python and performing biochemistry and molecular biology experiments. Being a resident at Codesmith helped me widen my net when applying for jobs in industry. Codesmith gave me broader skills in coding and more confidence with respect to being able to do technical language, technical communication, because that is not something that's explicitly taught in school. Very helpful.
So I was studying physics, and then I already have some passion for coding because I was into a lot of, these robotic competitions and just building small robots, because I was like a very nerd girl. So I really love coding since then. And then in Mexico, the professional side of things is a little bit different than the US. And for physics, it can be like a little bit challenging for the academia part. So I decided to switch into a maybe more stable occupation, which is software engineering. And I already had a lot of passion for it. So it was just about, I was studying physics because I wanted to do astronomy and I wanted to be an astronaut. But then I was like, oh, I can actually get involved in like these same tech industries or these space sector industries through code. And that's why I originally like wanted to pursue this software engineering journey.
Here's the more, since we're in the Pride month, here's the slightly more candid version of my story than I give on job applications. Maybe 10 years ago, I founded a walking tour company in Seattle with my wife and 5 other people, which has done okay, but doesn't pay a ton of money. And so the whole time I was doing it, I was also driving metro buses. During the pandemic, my wife and I split up. She spent more time at the tour. I'm still a silent partner there, but I was less involved in the day-to-day, partly to get a little separation. And so I moved from driving buses very part-time to driving buses closer to full-time. And during the pandemic that became really challenging just due to the nature of the population that was still on the buses, super vulnerable. Also, a lot of folks who had so many things going on in their lives that like keeping a mask over their face was the least of their concerns. So in a position where I was just like starting to experience compassion fatigue and wanted to do something else, wanted to have one job and a job where I could afford to continue to live in Seattle. So I started looking around and found that I actually liked coding a lot. I started seriously learning in January of 2022, and it's hard to believe that here I am doing it professionally.
Well, super happy to have you all here. Very glad that each of your own long and winding roads brought you to this community and ultimately to the room tonight. So I think it's a great time to start chatting a bit about that formative experience you had at Codesmith. You know, these like transformational months that you spent during your residency and how that time went for you all. And how that experience has helped you become the software engineers that you all are today. So as a starting place, I'd love to hear a bit more. We've got some folks in the room who are still kind of like preparing to go on this journey. I'd love to hear how the program helped you prepare for your own chosen path and sort of as you look ahead now, how would you say Codesmith has helped you prepare for those next steps in your careers?
First, I just want to circle back to the concept that you brought up about having winding paths. I think whenever I was younger, I always had this problem where I just felt different than other people who had straighter paths, and likewise with being queer, it was very like obvious that I just felt like I could never fit in sometimes, except in these groups, right? Whenever I was in school, I would always be very participating in our pride and inclusive functions, and that made life easier every time. And so, yeah, I guess I was going off into a tangent because you reminded me of that. And sometimes I think especially young people might have trouble realizing that it's okay to take all the turns in their life and things can always still get better. So from the very beginning of whenever I joined Codesmith, I knew that I was doing it because of my shortcomings in terms of coding on teams. I just did not have that experience. And so being able to communicate, being able to have really messy merges and rebases, you know, and not do the same work over again, and have things work in a timeline where you're not blocking someone else. All of that was a really useful experience that I gained from Codesmith, which I think was the question.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Forrest. Like Codesmith gives you this opportunity to really develop yourself and really to kind of like understand how the software engineering field actually is and how all of your like actual job is going to be. And I believe like it prepares you very well technically, and it's really hard and I love it. But it has like a lot of these like soft skills part. It's very important, the teamwork is very important in Codesmith. Like everything is revolving around teamwork and pair programming and doing things with others, and removing that idea that programmers are like all by themselves just coding. That's not true. We always have like, I have like, I don't know, 5 meetings per day, and you have to always to collaborate with people and to share code and whatever. One of the most important things for me in Codesmith is that with a lot of practice and a lot of the challenges that you have through the immersive, you get to be comfortable with not knowing. And that is like huge for me, because when I grew up, I was like very smart girl, and I was comfortable knowing, and I was uncomfortable not knowing. So when I got into Codesmith, I knew that this job and this life is all about researching and literally not knowing, and just like you have a new challenge every day in your work or in Codesmith, and you have to fix that challenge and you have to fix those problems. So I would say like for me, it was like the best part, just being comfortable with that and comfortable with not knowing. And yeah, I would say that's the biggest part for me. And I actually use that every day in my job, every day.
I'll echo some of what both Forrest and Miranda have said, that I think being the thing the immersive teaches you is how to learn. It's not so much about the skills or the knowledge that you come out with, but the ability to look at a new technology or a new application for a technology, you know, and be able to say like, hey, I have no idea how to use this. I'm going to look at documentation. I know what questions to ask. And in 2 days, I'll probably be able to at least start to write something with it. And just going from that like blank slate of, wow, this is overwhelming, to this is something that I can learn and I can apply, has been hugely valuable. The collaboration, absolutely. And I think it's pretty easy. Well, easy is relative, but all of the tutorials around the use of frameworks and languages are available on the internet, but using them with other people and learning how to make your code fit into code that is being written by a whole group of people, learning how Git works and how it works to collaborate. Just huge skills to go into a job search already having. And I think that's a big thing that you get from the immersive that would be really hard to replicate working on your own or learning on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all have raised so many different fantastic points and interesting parts of your experiences in the residency itself. And I'm sort of curious about how these experiences and skills translated to the time after Codesmith. I mean, as is no secret to any of us, we're currently living through a temporary tech winter of sorts, and I think it can be a particularly intimidating time to be searching for a position. So do y'all mind sharing a little bit about how your job search after Codesmith went, or how it is going now, and how Codesmith made an impact on that job searching chapter of your journey?
Sure. I can start again. I did want to circle back to the concept of learning on the job also, because I'm pretty sure over the 3 months of working at this job, I have not encountered a problem I've seen before. I'm not like, oh, I know how to do this because I've already done it. It's like always for the first time. And it's fun, it's exciting. Like my coworkers appropriately scope the tickets because I'm new, but I just want people to know that they're probably not going to see the same things that they're seeing at Codesmith, and that's fine because it's all about learning how to solve problems you've never seen before. Which is great. Okay, and now on to the job search train of thought. I mean, I could be wrong. I have this opinion that right now the code freeze is really only for big tech, and there are lots of companies out there that are still hiring, and they're going to do really cool and interesting work, and it might be a little bit different the way you prepare for these, because they're going to want to know that you can solve their specific problems. So probably more technical interviews versus algos. I know that Meta has recently gotten rid of its like boot camp program. So it's hiring people for positions instead of just like hiring smart people in general, so the competition can't get them, right? So that's kind of one like concrete way we can see things are changing. But it's not necessarily like I got hired during the tech winter. There are jobs. The job search might look slightly different than before.
Yeah, definitely, Forrest. Yeah, absolutely. I would say even on LinkedIn, I keep seeing like a lot of offers and a lot of recruiters approaching to me. So I would say it's more about like big tech companies, definitely. And it's more loud, like everyone's saying about Meta, about Google, about Microsoft. So yeah, I know we also want to work on those big tech companies, but also like there are companies that put cameras on fish on how do you say it? I'm sorry.
I think it was fish.
That's how I put it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought, okay.
I'm not sure that that's exactly how the official company would put it, but I think that's what I said. So
All right. So there are out there like a lot of very cool companies that have like a lot of more, I would personally, a lot of more purpose than the big tech companies. And that's kind of where I didn't want it to go when I was looking for a job. I did want to go to a big tech company, but I also wanted to be a company that really, I don't know, that had a purpose that I can like also connect with that purpose. And there are like tons of companies out there. And I was also like hired on these tech winters. So yeah, you can get hired. I would say the best thing for you when you end the immersive, when it finishes, is just sticking to your group, to your cohort mates, because it's so important. Maybe not all of them, of course, like you won't do a stand-up every day for like months, or like for a whole month every day at 9 o'clock, maybe not, but maybe if you stick with like 2 or 3 pals that you're really close to, that changes everything. I had like four or 5 girls that are in my heart, and we used to speak like, I don't know, twice per week, and we didn't even do like stand-ups together. We was just like hanging out and just doing some LinkedIn research together. But it really helps you to stick to your group, even if it's small or big.
lots of good advice that I will echo. I think Forrest is right that the companies out there are still hiring, even though the big companies are laying people off, and it is competitive. But I think my cohort, which is a pretty recent one, was people are getting hired, and a lot of people have already been hired, and the cohort after me has in C-Tree also a lot of folks have been hired. So I would definitely say persistence, checking in with your post-grad group, or creating a new post-grad group, having people to talk about how interviews are going and hear other folks interviewing experiences. I will say from everything that I've gathered in talking to people and my personal experience, algos are just not as common right now as they have been in the past, compared to take-homes and technical conversations where you're just asked in depth about particular technologies. So that obviously could change at any moment, but I wouldn't spend the amount of time grinding leak code that you might have spent 2 years ago. And definitely be open to companies of every size. Be open to, I think folks who I've seen go through the process have seen a lot of success in following the Codesmith style applications, a lot of success in doing just like the whole bunch of random applications. So I think that be willing to try lots of different strategies and iterate on them. I think the Codesmith style can really work, but also can kind of burn you out. And so if you need to take a week to just send out 1,000 easy applies, there are people who get jobs that way. You probably won't. You'll probably get a job from the one that you actually put the effort into, but like everything you can do to just keep that pipeline going and keep track, like Miranda said, of the things that are working. Be willing to switch it up, be willing to listen to your own personal energy, because it is a marathon, and it can be draining in a way that coding 11 hours a day is not draining. It's putting yourself out there, which can be really hard, especially if you're kind of on the introverted side. But yeah, if you can do whatever it takes to just keep doing it day in and day out, and that can sometimes be giving yourself a break, that can sometimes be switching what you focus on. I will say, to one addition to Miranda's advice, definitely keep a spreadsheet of everything that you've applied to, and make sure that that you are saving those applications somewhere, and not just saving the link to their LinkedIn post, because it is possible that the LinkedIn post will be taken down by the time you get contacted. And as you're prepping for interviews, you want to be able to look at the specific requirements that were listed in the post. So don't be like me and have to get onto the Wayback Machine to try to dig up an old LinkedIn posting that's no longer there.
These are all great tips, but that seems like a particularly like hot off the press tip that is good to note away. But these are all really fantastic insights. Thank you all for sharing your own hiring journeys, your advice. Now, this is a Pride Month panel, and I would really like to set aside some time to talk more specifically about the LGBTQ experience within tech. So Miranda, I'd love to start with you, because I know that you're working at the Trevor Project, which for me personally, like as a trans youth many years ago, was a hugely important organization for me and resource for me. I'm sure that's true for many others in the room as well. You know, it'll always hold a special place in my heart. So I would just love to hear some more about that experience working at a company that's providing direct support to the queer and trans community. So can you speak to that experience a bit? Like, how would you say working at the Trevor Project has impacted your career development?
Yes, of course. I would say I can talk about this in like two different manners, because one is like the personal part of it, because it means a lot to me to work in the Trevor Project, but it also like impacts me like professionally, right? So first of all, working at the Trevor Project, it's been like one of the best things that has ever happened to me. The thing is that Trevor, of course, provides a lot of basically service to LGBTQ youth, but it also is a very inclusive organization. So as I was telling you previously, I always had that feeling of maybe not belonging, because I'm pretty used to that feeling, because I had this background in physics. So I'm used to not belong, and I'm used to like, there's like a huge lab with like, I don't know, 50 men and just one woman and things like that, you know? So when I got into this, and actually this was like a huge deal for me in order to choose Codesmith, because I felt that in Codesmith, we also have like this sense of belonging, and like it's very inclusive and very diverse. So when I got into Codesmith, I was like super happy because, oh my God, like I feel included. And actually my cohort, we had like a lot of international people in there. And it's very diverse. So when my immersive finished, I was really scared of the professional world because I was thinking that I would just have that feeling again in my whole life of not belonging and just being like one queer woman in like a big group of tech guys, you know. So I was really happy to know that it's not only like focused towards of course mental health and to help LGBTQ youth, but also like inside it's very inclusive. And yeah.
Wow, that's super cool. I always suspected that working at the Trevor Project would be amazing, but it's actually seems like it's somehow even cooler than I'd hoped. It sounds personally and professionally and technically like an incredible environment to work in. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Miranda. And I'd love to open the conversation back up to everyone again and just hear a bit from all of you about you know, the ways in which you feel like your identity shapes how you approach coding and how you approach developing software solutions.
I think the way when I thought about this question ahead of time, like what I thought about in the way it's affected my career or job searches is more in being pickier about the companies and locations that I'm willing to work. I definitely saw cohort mates who I felt like were more willing to take any job at any company, regardless of the political, ethical implications of that company, or regardless of potentially where they might need to relocate. And I, at least at this moment, was just very, very unwilling to work for a company that didn't share my values or in a place that I didn't feel like I was going to be safe.
One thing that I did want to bring back was that I have worked in jobs where over 50% of us were queer, and that felt good, you know. But my current job, I am one of the only women. I'm one of the only. I'm definitely the only non-binary woman at my job, and it is. We did nothing for this month, for Pride Month. It was never brought up in an email. There's no support groups of any sort. And yet, despite that, all of my coworkers have used my correct pronouns, they, them, every day. No one has slept up. No one has made a big deal out of it. I feel fully respected. It's some people might worry that maybe those things are incompatible, right? Like not having it be part of the company culture, but apparently it was not. Very healthy culture and very respected, even despite all that is lacking.
Totally, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think those are all really interesting perspectives in terms of how identity can help to shape one's like technical approach and professional approach. And I could talk about this all day, but I do want to make sure we leave time for audience questions. So I've got just one other question for y'all. As a fellow software engineer, I am very excited to nerd out a bit here at the end. So I'm super curious to hear more about the type of work that y'all are doing. This could be programming work that you're doing at your job. It can be work that you're doing in your free time. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear what problems you're trying to solve currently with code, what projects you're working on to solve those problems. Feel free to get as technical or as non-technical as you want. Feel free to absolutely geek out to your heart's content. I think you'll find yourselves in very good company, but would love to hear a bit about the languages you're using and the projects that you're working on.
We have like a lot of things going on, but basically because we're focused on this suicide prevention and all of these efforts, we basically offer confidential assistance online and on the phone. And we also are working with the 998 lifeline in order to do the same thing, but for 988. And basically we need to build all of that infrastructure, right? So it's basically like building new infrastructure and maintaining that infrastructure. So we build things for counselors. Right now we're building like an application that helps to track how many people are connected or how many chats are assigned or unassigned and whatever, just like an internal monitoring tool for us. So I'm really happy that I chose a Kubernetes monitoring tool when I was doing my OSP, because that helped me in the job searching positions and also in Trevor, because right now I also work with Kubernetes and actually helped me to understand what Kubernetes is.
Let's see. So I was hired full stack, and I definitely was not hired with any knowledge of machine learning at all. And yeah, they knew that, and I haven't really touched the machine learning side of the company at this point, but I hope to in the future. I've been building out our backend and our data pipeline and doing support for an API. So basically taking a data pipeline that was essentially querying Google storage and building a database that can be queried instead. So I've been working a lot in SQL and a ton with GCP and trying to figure out scalability, maintainability, reliability, all that good stuff. And I hope to work on, and then I also was hired to build out some data visualization for the company, which I haven't really done yet. And it's, so some of it, what I'm doing now is like looking into whether existing tools like Grafana or Tableau could be a good solution for us, or whether we'll want to build dashboards or visualizations in-house. So that's where I will maybe eventually get back to the front end, but possibly not at all. But yeah, I think my company is mostly all the other two software engineers are very machine learning, have a lot of machine learning training. So I think I'll have the opportunity to learn from them eventually as everything else settles down.
Wow, super cool, y'all, to hear just about the depth and the breadth of all of the different technical experiences that you're having. Like, thank you so much for taking us on those journeys. And as I mentioned, it is time to take some questions from our audience. I see that Forrest got a bit of a head start. They already put a super interesting answer in the chat here to Tyler's question about machine learning. But I would love to ask this question from Ansel, which is for folks who use they, them pronouns. Were you transparent about that during the interview process?
I identify more with they, them pronouns, and I thought that was important to me to find a workplace that would not create a problem about that. So they were the only pronouns I put on my application, on my resume, and I put them in real big, as big as my name, right next to my name on my resume. And yeah, I don't know if I think that might have made a difference in terms of like finding respectful coworkers.
I would add that for the Trevor Project, in Mexico, we have this inclusive language that it's very different from the English inclusive language. So in here, it's like a very specific way of talking, and we have to use the E a lot in all of like in all of the words we use the E instead of the A or the O. So it's kind of hard to actually speak. It's not, but for a lot of people, it's kind of hard to speak in inclusive language in Spanish. And when I always used, like in a professional environment, I used to only speak with the O, which is like the male version of everything. And that's the thing that is being used like currently right now, the most popular one. So if you start using the E, sometimes it can feel like not professional. That's the idea of how it works sometimes in Mexico. And I've never until now, since I got into the Trevor Project, I wasn't in a professional environment. I wasn't talking with the E until my recruiter had that video conference with me, and he was talking completely with the E. And I was so happy to hear that. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even have to hide it. I love this. And yeah, I just started talking with the E, and I was like thrilled about that. And he gave his pronouns. And in Mexico, it's not at all common that anyone greets you and says you, hi, my pronouns are they, them, or she, her. No, that's not common at all. So when my Mexican recruiter of the Trevor Project did that interview in Spanish first, I was super happy. So yeah, but for the record, from now on, I would definitely be proud of my pronouns and not hide them, even if I'm in Mexico or anywhere.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing those experiences. And I think we've got time for one more question here for the whole panel. I see Amelia asked, what's one thing that you wish you had known when you just graduated and you were new in the job search? I feel like that's a question probably on a lot of folks' minds.
I wish I had known that I was going to get a job and that it would all be okay and that I could relax a little bit and be less anxious and you know, I was trying to spend time not worrying about it, and I knew that I should do that, but I was not living a very balanced or emotionally well-regulated life in those months.
Yeah, I definitely, I wish I had known that too. Agreed. Would have made it all easier, but I think what I wish I had known up front was just how fun interviews could be. It's always fun to meet people and geek out about the same things that you care about with them. And so yeah, I think I think I went into a lot of interviews like feeling scared, right? But instead it was actually just ended up being fun and uplifting. And I wish I had gone in with that expectation. It would have relieved a lot of my stress.
Well, maybe a good way to close out this evening is I'd love to kind of come back to our purpose as a Pride Month panel. Is there any advice that you'd particularly give or resources you'd particularly recommend to queer and trans folks who are interested in pursuing a career in tech?
Do it. We need more of us.
I find comfort in reading books by queer and transgender scientists. I think one of the most recent one was really just like my life as a transgender scientist, and they had like a very like similar like even career path to me, and that meant a lot. I think that it can be very uplifting to find your people and allies and to spend time with them, going to events.
Same thing. Basically find your people, and if you don't have any people, just talk to us, reach out. I believe we'll all be happy to talk to you, and sometimes it's hard to create like a safe space for you, but you have 3 of us here, so talk to us, reach out. And I believe that in Codesmith there's a huge opportunity to create this kind of community. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Miranda and Emily and Forrest, for sharing your experiences and so much wonderful advice with us tonight.